In the 1970s, we had a zero population movement because we wanted to spare the planet, and we were and still are vegan. None of this had anything to do with eugenics. Oh, baby, oh. Unfortunately, you have stumbled onto a subject that I know an awful lot about, I'm quite passionate about, and you're going to get an earful. The zero population growth movement, or ZPGers, which is where a couple doesn't have more than 2 children. In population dynamics, we would say that they are maintaining replacement, but the population is not growing. There's also the NPG movement, negative population growth movement, where folks have 1 or 0 children in order to decrease the population over time. And when we end up with societies that have negative population growth, it's not a good scene. I've talked about that extensively in the past. Steeply declining birth rate is not a good thing for a society. The ZPG movement was founded by population bomb author Dr. Paul Ehrlich from Stanford University, along with an attorney named Richard Bowers and an entomologist named Charles Remington. The population bomb is something that people still cite today. It is a horrifically racist, sexist, eugenicist book. I'm shocked that more people are not embarrassed to quote this book. Ehrlich wrote his book after he went to India. And watching Indian women and children in particular, he decided that we needed global population control. Ehrlich is widely considered a soft eugenicist, but in places his book is outright for hard eugenics. In fact, let me quote from Population Bomb real quick. "We must have population control at home, hopefully through a system of incentives and penalties, but by compulsion if voluntary methods fail." He was talking about the United States there, where his preference was for voluntary population control, but he had no problem with sterilizing people. When you look internationally, you see how overt the racism is, because internationally he was far more adamant. He said, we must use our political power to push other countries into population control. Ehrlich made false claims that there was not enough food to feed people, and that if we didn't institute his population control methods, particularly in India, that India would experience mass starvation by the late 1970s. Unfortunately, this white Stanford professor's beliefs took off like wildfire. According to Betsy Hartman, the author of Reproductive Rights and Wrongs, the results of Ehrlich's ideas being taken up by multiple countries were horrific. For example, in countries like Egypt, Tunisia, Pakistan, South Korea, and Taiwan, health workers' salaries were tied to the number of IUDs they inserted and how many women they got on the birth control pill. They were financially incentivized to control women's reproductivity and deny them reproductive autonomy. As a result of the popularity of Ehrlich's ZPG movement and his Population Bomb book, Hartman explains that millions of people in Mexico, Bolivia, Peru, Indonesia, and Bangladesh were sterilized, often coercively. Here's my big problem with the book, despite all of the violations of women's rights, despite all of the really overt eugenics, despite the fact that, Ehrlich was really big on controlling the populations in countries that were not the United States and Europe. That's all a really, really big problem. The fact that India's prime minister at the time, Indira Gandhi, used Ehrlich's book as the justification for a mass sterilization campaign. That's all a real big problem. But ultimately, the premise of this book and the reason that it justifies eugenics, the reason that it has a eugenicist framework in the first place, is because it is a pro-capitalist screed that preached the poor were poor because they have too many children, rather than the reality that the poor are poor because of systemic exploitation and oppression by the super rich. It's this false belief that people in poverty are poor because they reproduce. It's this false belief that the people at the bottom are consuming too much and there's not enough food to feed them, when the reality of the situation is that the super rich hoard vast quantities of wealth and resources, take far more than their fair share, have an incredibly outsized impact on the planet, and deny all of the people down here access to resources. There is more than enough food to go around in this world. There's more than enough wealth to go around in this world. There is more than enough land that can be used responsibly, cultivated in a regenerative way, to feed everybody and have an abundance. Books like The Population Bomb falsely blame the poor for hunger, in a way that makes the elites and the super rich quite comfortable, because it is once again scapegoating those in poverty so that we don't look at the actual causes of environmental degradation and devastation, limited resources, and poverty and hunger, which is the super rich, which is a capitalist system focused on exploitation of people and the planet, rather than my permaculture ethics of earth care, people care, and fair share. It's also worth noting that the ZPG movement's president in the mid-1970s, Dr. John Tanton, who was an ophthalmologist, wrote a paper called The Case for Passive Eugenics. He argued that like active eugenics, where you kill people that you feel are undesirable, that's maybe not super okay. That's not super palatable. Passive eugenics, where you forcibly restrict childbearing to the years of maximum reproductive efficiency, which he said were ages 20 to 35, that would reduce things like the number of Down syndrome children born each year. Tanton also argued that those with greater intelligence are more worthy of reproduction. In 1992, he wrote, "Do we leave it to individuals to decide that they are the intelligent ones who should have more kids and more troublesome? What about the less intelligent who logically should have less kids? Who is going to break the bad news to them?" The ZPG movement is a eugenicist movement. The Population Bomb is a eugenicist book. It argues not only that women should be stripped of their reproductive autonomy, that coerced sterilization is okay, it's good and justified, especially outside of the US, especially in countries like India. Not only was the ZPG movement's president an out eugenicist who felt that less intelligent people, he got to decide who was intelligent and who wasn't. Less intelligent people should not be allowed to reproduce. All of this was done in the name of capitalism. All of this was done in the name of the super rich being able to continue to take an outsized quantity of resources, to take more than their fair share. It is blaming the poor for what? For the exploitation of the rich. Sounds an awful lot like what we're experiencing in the United States right now, doesn't it? Doesn't it sound an awful lot like the Trump regime's talking points? Doesn't it sound an awful lot like what Elon Musk and Peter Thiel say? After all, Elon Musk launched a holocaust which is ongoing today against the world's poor. By ending USAID funding, he took away necessary food and medical aid from millions of people. The Lancet assessment says that 14 million people will die in this holocaust, and they will be among the world's poorest. At the same time, Elon Musk says that he has superior genes, and it's for the good of humanity that he have as many kids as possible. Same shit, new decade. Same shit, new decade. Also, not super hard to find this same kind of stuff spoken about extensively, openly in 1930s and 1940s Germany. Too many people who associate with the political left are far too comfortable with beliefs and ideologies that are eugenics. You think that they're not because you don't want to think and accept the reality that you have beliefs aligned with people like Peter Thiel and Elon Musk, with people like Heinrich Himmler and Joseph Goebbels. You don't want to feel like you have beliefs in common with them. The Population Bomb is a racist, eugenicist, absolute garbage book. The ZPG movement is a racist, eugenicist movement. And they are both pro-capitalist. They support the oligarchy. They reinforce false beliefs that the super rich are superior and deserve to take far more, and that it is the poor who are responsible for their poverty rather than systemic oppression and exploitation by those in power. So believing in this shit, not a leftist position at all.